Yes, thank you. So, I would like to thank, of course, the Institute for Education for the wonderful team they have assembled and for actually working towards the organization of this symposium. And Christine especially, and also I would like to thank my reviewer, Miss Antoinette, for her excellent job, and also I would like to thank the participants because without the participants, obviously, we won't be having a nice multicultural audience. Well, we have actually over the past years, I've been working in a multicultural school for the past 21 years at Mariam Al Batul School, where we host mostly people from Arab cultures. But obviously, Arab cultures they differ within themselves, so it's still a very multicultural school. And throughout these many years and many publications and so many lectures and in various institutions, I've always been intrigued as to how we can measure our input as lecturers or tutors or teachers in the classrooms. How can we measure our multicultural input? And the presentation today will be dealing with two ways of how we can measure our inputs. And so we'll be dealing with conceptual development in multicultural education. As Professor explained in the beginning of the symposium, which I was following before before Damien's presentation, we need to analyze different concepts of multicultural education. So multicultural education has got various definitions and various perspectives. So, but we are going to sort of diffuse into few concepts so that we can analyze how we are going to measure it. And different concepts, we have already explained many times, mean different things to different people. It's shaped by the complexities of multicultural education and our experiences. Multicultural education is an inherent part of education. This is not an add-on. And this is the problem that I constantly face during my lectures and professional development sessions. People still believe that it is something we add. And when you present to teachers or LSCs or other stakeholders in education, people don't like this adding thing. And in fact, we're not. Okay, it's an inherent part of our education. So we are still struggling to have multicultural education as an integral part of our education. How students perceive, and how teachers perceive, and heads of schools, school leaders, school counselors, how they perceive multicultural education. Some expressions I've heard during the past 21 years are lack of time, lack of feasibility, in addition to an overburdened curriculum. But these are only conceptions of multicultural education. Multicultural education is more about inclusive and innovative strategies. It's more about the learning environment. And it's more about the kind of delivery and the context in which we live. And most important, how we evaluate. This is what we are going to do this presentation. We're going to evaluate education. As Banks said, multicultural education is about justice and equality. And if you look at literature, various modern literature, which you find in various journals and platforms, it is very sort of modernist that you speak about justice in education, high academic outcomes, and democratic citizenship. There's no place than these within a multicultural. So it's about systematically weaving topics together, which also goes in hand with the learning outcomes framework. Strategies. It's about professional school leadership. It's about policy making, guidance and counseling, effective from climate, which leads to high quality learning and our ability to perform a good assessment of our students. Now, research emphasizes diversity of community, moving across different stages, different learning styles, and different backgrounds. Yes, these have all to be factored in. Okay, so try to keep the same distance from the mic. Okay, so multicultural education is an act of compassion. It is about justice. It's a moral commitment. Okay, so what we notice is that preparation programs, teacher preparation programs at universities, not in Malta only, but across the world, find it difficult to instill in their teachers the diverse perspectives and experience which are needed. If we look also at theory, now we are going on concept mapping. So we are going to speak about two tools. One is concept mapping, and the second is a reflective diary. So these two tools are used to be able to measure program outcomes in multicultural education courses. Using concept maps, which is a well-researched tool to be able to analyze training events. So concept maps are effective devices, okay, and they depict visually what people are thinking, and they depict learners to scaffold meaning in learning. Okay, so together with concept maps, I will be using reflective journal as a research tool. It is derived from diary studies. Okay, so like we used to do when we were young, we used to write in our diaries. We used to write our secrets. I'm not going to share those with you. Okay. Yes, but I mean, diaries and reflective diaries have always been part of our educational system, sort of, since we were young. But a reflective journal is more of an active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge. Okay, so a reflective diary more focuses more on the ideas of and reduces the chance of being an error in making. Concept map reflective journals together. Okay, can prioritize ideas, analyze critically various concepts, make decisions what is meaningful to the learners, and helps educators to construct new levels. In the end, this is what we want. We want our learners, our reflective practitioners to gain deeper knowledge, gain so that's the whole idea of combining reflective journals and um, participants, okay, were during various courses. Now we will see the composition of the participants very soon. Those who I managed to assemble actually over the years. And when I started this little project for this study, participants were to form part of four major categories and to participate in four major categories so that their knowledge, their understanding will be enhanced, their competencies are enhanced, and reflect more on their critical abilities. So the courses, many courses, a set of courses consisted mostly of 2.5 hours sessions of 20 hours, and that would make all the hours. And they were asked to, of course, improve knowledge, from basic knowledge to more advanced knowledge, and create bridges between cultures and plan for culturally safe schools. enhanced their understanding by examining their own attitudes and how these attitudes impinge on their daily decisions, and how to incorporate theory and cultural framework in their work as school leader. That does not mean that courses were intended for schools only, but also for teacher leaders or middle management or education officers, different stakeholders. So we collected collected we collected data at the beginning of the lectures, after a number of lectures, and by the end of the lectures. Okay. And we also started to score using a concept map. So we scored the concept map, and the scoring is something arbitrary. So it's quite immaterial whether you give 2 points or 3 points, but obviously it's the whole complex thing that makes it interesting. So when there is a first link, so I put multicultural education, the caption multicultural education in the middle of a board or the middle of a paper, and participants were asked to link what they think, to write what they think multicultural education is all about. Okay, so for any first link, they were awarded 2 points. For any deeper link, as you can see in the figure, they were awarded 4 points. And for cross links, they were awarded 6 points. So cross links, of course, are the deepest possible level of understanding. And the concept map would look like this. So you have multicultural education in the middle, some associated with migration, with cultural competency, with awareness, with minority cultures, with migrants, with inclusive curricular planning. Okay, so if a participant taught about awareness, then he or she would need to expand what that caption awareness means, and then he would expand. If he expands or she expands that concept, they will be awarded or awarding themselves, for that matter, or complex. Would look like this. Okay, so we started with a few concepts, but then by the end of 4 lectures, or by the end of the whole set of lectures, the participants would have, as you see, improved their understanding, improved their knowledge, and improved their critical abilities in understanding multicultural education. Okay, so this gave us an opportunity to put everything in it. As you see, yellow columns, there have been an increased knowledge, there have been an increase in knowledge, a slight decrease in understanding, because obviously they concentrated more on their critical abilities by the end of the lectures. And in terms of competencies, starting with a score of 174 and ending up with a score of 432, that would mean they have increased their competencies. As you see, 3 times as much. Similarly, 3 times as much were their critical abilities. So, I think I skipped. Yes, so this is about knowledge. Okay, as you see the number of crosslinks. Okay, you see number 1. Okay. In the beginning, few crosslinks, ended up with 8 crosslinks. That would mean the increased level of knowledge. Similarly, so that I try to shorten this presentation a bit. Similarly goes for the understanding category, the competencies category, and the critical abilities category. Okay. So the concept maps were also complemented by diary responses. Okay, so we started with people not knowing enough, what it means to be an effective teacher in a multicultural class, feeling lost, with the same people feeling positive in multicultural settings after a number of engagement hours with their tutor or with their lecturer. Okay, so there is clearly an enrichment of the multicultural self, and then also of shared knowledge between colleagues and students. As Damon said, students knowing their teachers, students knowing themselves, and teacher knowing her or his students. Okay, so understanding towards the same, an increased level of understanding. And responses from diaries. And the responses from diaries, from journals, show increased cognizance that multicultural education is not adding subjects, but it is looking through different lenses and perspectives. Right. So as we can see, competencies category, participant responses where we are understanding more students' interests. We are able now to clarify expectations of students. We are able to plan for each individual student. Differentiated teaching. That is why it is not an add-on, because it is something we are already doing. It is planning for the individual, planning in small groups, and planning as a whole class. And adapting to the style of the children, to the learning style of our students. Okay, so this is what it is all about. As you see, have had also an increase in post-concept. So, right. See the excerpts from the various participants from believing that multicultural education is a mammoth task. It's too big for us to understand. It's true that it's been coming on us very, very quickly. It was unprecedented. But now, you see the red parts in the bottom of the slide. It has provided with an opportunity to test my students in higher learning skills, such as inquiry and problem solving. Right. A particular response from the participants during courses was that they said the students themselves started to use their ethnic capital to understand mathematical concepts. They were talking about heights of churches, for example, comparing them to different heights of a mosque, for example. They themselves were incorporating the teacher's comments and the teacher's explanations and the teacher's perspectives. So it was no longer like Damien, because Damien was a maths teacher apparently. So the whole teaching process takes on a new stride. Okay, takes on a new stride with different concepts in a whole different context. Of course, mirroring both the expectations of the students and their cultural capital. They could draw bar graphs, for example, represent their ethnic backgrounds, population, geography, with quite relative ease. They were able to link geographical concepts with mathematical concepts, geometry, etc. And this is the beauty of it all. Right. So, conclusion to what we have been saying, concept maps are ideal to track educators' conceptual development. So the use of concept maps, I recommend the use of concept maps to be used so that we can track what our students, they could be participants in courses, we can track their critical abilities, we can track also our students with the same concept map, with the same style of concept map. Right. So So here, okay. Right. Damien. So we need to inculcate in our teachers and in our stakeholders, irrespective of the grade they are in, a willingness to transform oneself, reflecting and working wholeheartedly. Educators should be able to change their strategies. As Khalid was saying in the previous commentary, in his previous lecture, we need to change multicultural education, and as Banks said, what is multicultural education about? It's about change. It's about changing strategies to include all students, irrespective of their cultural diversity. So any tools which would help us do so are simply great. So tools garnered during multicultural education courses, educators can create new and effective solutions to challenge their students to think past their beliefs. Because frequently our students are simply fossilized in their beliefs. And also our educators, they need to be able to think critically and engage their students as a whole family in the classroom to think and engage critically in multicultural dialogue and present alternative viewpoints. The basis of effective teaching in multicultural education is effectively the synergy that we create in our classes by building strong relationships between teachers and students based on trusting each other, on being sensitive to each other's needs and understanding. So such a synergy needs to be complemented with multicultural training resources. As Khalid was saying, we need resources, we need more books, we need more IT equipment and others. Most of the time, because I visit my master's students and I visit my LSCs, and I see that although their lessons, they are carefully constructed with their file, etc., but they frequently lack multicultural content. And this is what we need to advise our teachers so that they can infuse multicultural content in their planning. Right. So we need, as we said, also additional investment in capital. So we need more teachers who are trained and more people who engaged in the very complex but entertaining at the same time and enriching subject of multicultural education.